This is the Bottom Shot Podcast.
Pulverary is up high. They come out of turn number 4. Stutter between the turns. The fans come to their feet.
It is Ted Christopher still in command. Keith Rocco right there on his back bumper.
Bringing Stafford Motor Speedway's past and present together.
They are side by side running for the finish line. It's a photo finish.
Deep into turn number 3. He goes in deeper than most. Christopher is in trouble. It is Keith Rocco to slingshot to the bottom, and he'll take down the win.
A Stafford Motor Speedway production where we will hear from the personalities from the past and present that found success on the legendary half-mile oval.
The scoreboard shows goose eggs as they wait. It's Pulverary. He wins it by inches over Richie Evans in the Spring Sizzler.
Unbelievable chain of events.
Now, here are your hosts, Paul Arute and Kyle Rickey.
All right. We have a special guest on the Bottom Shot podcast. I convinced my mom, Lisa Arute, the true boss of the track here at Stafford, to come on the pod. Mm-hmm. Welcome to our bar.
I'm excited.
It's your bar,
I'm excited. It's going to be an interesting afternoon here.
This was an impromptu discussion. We were in your office, just sitting there talking about the content that is going to have to get produced, even though we're in this crazy time. And I said, why don't you come on the podcast? And you said no, and I convinced you somehow.
And who was supposed to come to the podcast today?
Mr. Jack Arute Jr., the world famous. So you are Jackie's replacement.
Wow. Big shoes there.
How does
big
that feel?
shoes.
You're Jack Arute's replacement?
I'm feeling pretty good today now.
Yeah, you're a big dog now. So
if I could just compare to him,
You've listened, you've caught our first couple podcasts.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite so far?
You know, I like them all. I think they all have their.
Oh, you got to pick one.
They all have their own special moments to them, but in each one has one part that I really got a kick out of or whatever. But I thought that Doug Coby, the story of Doug Coby was pretty good. I've known Doug for a long time, and I feel as though there was a lot there I didn't know. It was neat to see.
It was a cool pod because there was a lot of stories that I don't think anyone's ever come across, and it kind of gave Doug more of like the backstory, like the bio of Doug, because I know he got trashed on Twitter for a solid month with the iRacing clan, but he was able to come on the pod and be a
redeem
great guest.
Himself. Yes.
So as we kind of touched on, we're kind of in a crazy time in America at the moment with this the virus, COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Or whatever. Kind of how is that going to affect our schedule this season, if at all?
Like we've the board had our meeting this morning, our Monday morning meeting in my office, and like we discussed already, we're looking at the tie rod swap meet. Unfortunately, we had to cancel that for the spring. Not able to reschedule that. It's just not enough time on the schedule to do it, but we will open that back up for October 18th is the fall swap meet. Looking ahead, how I like to look at it, I like to see the positive in things. I know that for the next 2 weeks that the governor has said schools are closed, so I like to think maybe in 2 weeks time we'll reevaluate ourselves here, see where we're at. We don't like to panic. We're not ones to panic. We want to be able to get our season in. We will go week by week, see what happens, and definitely get it out to the fans as soon as we can, the teams. But, I know it's going to happen. Last year we had the Sizzler in May. Yeah. It's doable. It is not a problem. We'll get it done. We will get it in because, that's what we're here for. That's what we do.
And I know season passes are, everyone's in question, am I going to get enough events? And there's always times where we can extend the season at the end of the year or have the extra event on a Friday, do special events. So there's going to be plenty of time to get back on track because it's not off track yet.
That's right.
It'll be okay.
It will.
This will pass.
It will. This too shall pass, as one of our good friends, Mr. Kenny Horton, used to always say. This too shall pass, and it will. It will, and it will be all the better for it when we come around, and we'll be. Hey, this place will be really clean, and so will all of Connecticut. Connecticut's going to be a very clean place.
We got plenty of time to paint and clean and do all that. So, tell us about what your role is at the track here. I know I describe you as the boss. Whenever I say I have to ask the boss, everyone assumes it's Dad. It's not true. You're the one who pays the bills. You're the one who kind of drives the ship here. So tell our listeners kind of what your title is and your job and kind of what your responsibilities are.
I'd like to think that I do. I'm a little bit of everything. Wear different hats on different days. A lot to do. You know, I take care of a lot of the office stuff, the payroll, the scheduling, the driver, as far as like a lot of the driver stuff, as far as making, you know, getting the pay for the drivers, paying the bills here.
And pay is important. At Stafford
It is
Speedway.
very important. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and that's pretty much where I usually am. I'm not front and center all the time. And it doesn't bother me. I'd like to be one behind the scenes and making sure things are going
But not
right.
today.
Not
You're
today. Front and
which
center.
is good.
Front and center.
And so, kind of talk us through how you got involved in the track. So, obviously, you are not in a route by birth.
Thank
but
you.
You're like, yeah, I'm not that crazy. But you a married dad.
Yeah.
And you're now involved in this crazy business. Tell us about the first time you came to Stafford Speedway.
Okay, well, it all started back in the 80s. That's when I met Dad, which for anybody who doesn't know, it's my husband is Mark, and that would be Paul's dad. We met actually on a construction job, because at the time I was working for the Department of Transportation. I was an engineer on highway construction projects. My husband, Mark, actually, Dad was working for the construction company. It was Arute Brothers. And he asked me out on a date, and okay, I'll go on a date. I was all happy. I was going to go on a date. And where does he bring me? He brings me to Stafford Speedway. Well,
were you excited about that? Or you're like, what the hell is this?
I thought it was intriguing. I had never been to Stafford Speedway before. So I thought, and I really didn't know much about racing. And I ended up sitting in the stands, and my date for the night was not by my side, but was all over the place in the pit area.
Wait, he didn't. So he just
abandoned
dropped
me.
you off and left?
Well, he sat me in the stands. It was actually in turn 4.
Okay.
And he sat me in the stands, and hey, I'll be right back. Probably about 3 hours later, the end of the night, he did come back. I met some people around me. They told me who to watch for. But he was checking out. I wanted to make sure the food was going right, the beer was going right. People in the pits were doing whatever they were supposed to do. But at the time, I really wasn't aware of to know what he was actually doing.
Okay, so I now have so many questions immediately. So did you have any idea what you were even looking at? Because whenever I bring anyone to the track, and you have the same thing, they sit in the stands and they're like, wait, the caution's out, but why did the guy that was in the lead have to go back in line and give up that, like all these crazy questions that's true. As a person who's involved, it's like, wait, no, it's obvious. So did you have any idea what was going on?
I had no idea. And really, I had never been. I take that back. I'm going to tell you a little side story here. I went to a racetrack when I was about 12 years old, and believe it or not, I grew up in Windsor, and the people across the street were the father was into racing.
Okay.
I, again, at that point, really knew nothing about racing. And they invited me to go to what was then Riverside Park. Well, me thinking, we're going to the amusement park. I was so excited. Oh, I had to convince my parents to let me go. And we went. Well, we didn't go to the amusement park. We went to the racetrack. So when I was 12 years old, I actually went to Riverside, and that night, really, I knew nothing about racing. I sat in those stands, and I did not know what. I was like, what are we doing? I just kept looking over my shoulder at the amusement rides behind me, wishing that we could go on the rides.
Do you remember anything from that?
You know what? I bet you a lot of the guys that talk about Riverside, I bet you Dan Avery was racing and those guys, but I really, nothing stood out to me other than watching the cards and not knowing what I was looking at.
You would never have thought that,
never,
20
ever.
years later, you'd be sitting at a racetrack?
That's so true.
So let's go back to that. The first time you came here, you're in the stands. You have no idea what's going on. Do you remember any of the drivers that were on track or anything?
So one thing I do remember was there was a lot of cautions, and that's all I kept saying was, please, God, don't let there be any more cautions. Please, please, I just want to... I just need the racing to go on. And honest, to this day, I still say the same thing. Please don't let there be any cautions. But
we do not cheer for cautions here. We want good racing. That's what we want.
No, but what I thought was pretty neat at the time, as I got into it more and more, still the first few years of coming, or first year probably of coming here, I thought it was pretty neat because the Bodine brothers were here. And at one race, I do remember that all three of them were on the track at the same time. And I just thought that was
cool.
the coolest thing.
So that's Jeff, Todd, and Brett.
Yeah, and I don't even know how many times that happened.
It might have been too many.
Might have been that one time, but I just thought that was the neatest thing, that all three of them were on the track at the same time.
Wow. And so, okay, so then you're still sitting there. You're like, where's
Praying.
my date? And so he comes back, and are you just like, get me the hell out of here, or what?
No, not really. I mean,
So
it was interesting.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
something different, unique. So, we just went along,
And so was Dad involved in the track? So was he like working at the track at that time?
He
Or
wasn't.
was he doing both?
He was doing both. He would come here on the Fridays, but he was working construction at the time, so
Okay.
he wasn't full time here.
And so you guess you go on a second date. I hope it's not at the racetrack.
Oh no, I think the second date was also the same track, but this time we brought another couple with us, so I had
Okay.
somebody to sit with in the stands.
And so you're getting accustomed to it. Do you like it? You become a fan at all? Or
Actually,
you just kind of like, eh?
No, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching the people, how there was such a camaraderie amongst these people who would come here every Friday. And the funny thing that I still remember to this day, I thought, how will I ever be able to make friends like these people are such tight friends, good friends. I don't know any of them. How am I ever going to, be part of this? And one of the people that I remember, one of the first people that I remember kind of like started talking to me, you're never going to believe this, was Ted Christopher.
No way.
And
really?
and
was
he,
it in the pits or something, or like
it was
just
in the
around?
pits
Yeah.
because as time went on, a couple years now, we're talking a couple years down, I started doing I started working, like helping in the pit with Fred Gordon. We'd do the ticket sales and the season passes, and I started meeting people more and more. But
wow.
that really was like a concern of mine, was like,
How
these
am I
people
gonna-
are all so friendly. I don't belong with these, I don't know them.
Yeah.
But as you open yourself up and you spend more time and you get to know about them,
The friendliest
then
people on earth.
they are. Oh yeah,
It's
a big
in
family.
the pits, to the fans
Yeah.
in the stands, to all that. But let's jump back for a second. So, what was your first job here then? Did you start to work here pretty quickly, or was it's the typical, I guess, Arute way is that you make like all my friends have to work here in the summer when we're short staffed and
That's
we get
right.
anybody who can. So,
Yeah.
how quickly did you end up having a job here?
So, like I said, at the time I was working for the state, and I was actually working down at the other end of the state.
And you
So,
were, for the listeners, you were an engineer.
Yeah, I was civil engineer on highway construction projects, and it was hard to get here on Fridays, but I would, in time, I was able to work it out where I would get here at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock from the jobs. And so now we're talking, maybe it was 87, 88. Dad's now working here full time. So if I'm going to see him, I need to like go up there, come up here to the racetrack in order to be able to see him, because he spends so much time here. So Dad and I we took over the pit stopper program. We actually were the ones who put it together, but this
didn't
is
know that.
way before how things are done now. But everything's done by the internet.
So wait, you
and
took it over, like so there was a person doing it before you? Before
yes,
that?
yep, Dexter Burnham used to do
Dexter
it. Yeah.
Burnham, and then
Yep.
you took it over.
Yes, and so, but to us, I mean, with here, I had a job. Dad was working up here. We really didn't have much experience in that type of work, so we would take, pictures, the articles that we would write. We would throw them in an envelope. This is how it used to be done. You would throw them in an envelope, put them in the mail on Monday morning or Saturday morning, and get them up to Speedway Press. So they would put it together for you
So
and
they
turn
would
it
assemble
around.
it and then send
yeah,
it back.
Yeah. Threw it in an envelope. We didn't even know
So
we were
you
sending
wrote
them.
Did you?
We actually
you
wrote
the
some
articles?
We did.
Did you or did
I had no
Dad?
idea. I had no idea what I was writing about, but I
Dad
wrote
write
articles.
Articles?
Yeah, not many,
way.
not many. Because then I want to say it was about the time when Corey Pisacco started
Okay, so
working.
this is like
approaching that
90s?
time. Yeah,
Early 90s. Okay.
yeah.
And
We
then
didn't do
so-
it for too long. We didn't do it ourselves for too long.
Okay, and then did you sell them too?
Yep, I sold them out of a little booth on the Midway. I want
Where
to
was
say
the booth?
it was down near the where the lower beer kiosk is now. There was a little shed there, and I would sell them out of there. But kids still sold for us
Okay.
too.
And then I eventually sold
Yes.
them. That was
That
was
was
when they were
later.
being made. That wasn't L&M original, I
No,
guess.
no.
So how long did that go on for? At least
You
a
know,
little bit.
Maybe about 2 years, maybe at the most.
So you must have gotten to know or been more aware of like the drivers and kind of what everything was going on as you were doing the program then.
Well, I got to know him, because now I'm here more.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was through Dad because of the stories Dad would tell me, and that's how I got to know people more so. Who is who, what divisions they were, was through Dad and his knowledge of it, and Grandpa Jack too, of course.
Yeah. And back then, who were kind of the top dogs then? Do you remember?
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness.
I put you on the spot, huh?
That does put me on the spot.
Who, when you look back on that time, who were the drivers that, like, come to mind? Obviously, probably Ted, obviously.
Oh,
and
Ted
Mike
and
Bob
Mike,
Potter.
definitely. Bob Potter was here. I mean, honest, there's a lot of them, but it's not coming to me right this second.
Okay, so then eventually you mentioned you go back to you're doing the tickets at the pit booth, and there you must have gotten to know everybody. So you kind of came full circle from being in the stand saying, I don't know anyone, what am I going to do, to you get to talk with everybody, like drivers, teams, fans that come in the gate. So that must have been an experience.
It was that, and that is a lot of those people are still here, still racing with us, or now their kids are racing. Now their kids are coming in the pit. So it's been quite a while now since I've been here. So I came here full time in 1996. So that's almost 25 years.
That must have been a big change for you.
It was.
And what kind of prompted that?
Well, what happened at that point of our life was that Dad was working up here, and I'm on jobs down in like the Stafford area, and I had just gotten notice that I was going to be on this bridge job that was going to last for 10 years, and it was going to be in the Stafford Greenwich area. Well, that from there all the way up to Stafford, the other end of the state, it was just too big of a commitment for me. And you guys were, in school, starting school, and I just couldn't see myself running around from one end of the state to the other. So I had to make a decision. So I decided at that time that I would come up work full time, and it just so happened that the woman that was doing the office work was getting ready to retire. BJ. So she trained me for a few months, and she ended up retiring in the fall. I came in full-time in June of 96.
And the rest is history.
And it is
We're here,
history.
What, 30 years later? Almost 25
Come
years
on now.
later?
Yeah, 25.
So in that span, lots gone on here.
Oh, yeah.
Good, bad, good times, bad times, I guess is the best way to put it. What are some of the more memorable moments? I'm going to put you on the spot. You can name a couple.
Well, sometimes something aren't always about racing. I know that's not what you think, because everything in our life is revolve around racing. But when we paved the racetrack, I had a lot to do with that, and I always felt pretty proud of myself because I'm an engineer. That's what I was, and that's where I had just come from. I just retired from the state. Not that I had the years, but I could get out of the state, and that year, that fall, is when we had worked on the design and doing the work. So I actually got to continue for a little bit longer because I really like road construction. So the racetrack was.
So what did you have to do around it? That's cool. I didn't know that. So what did you do? Like, did you actually
just manage kind of
project?
like almost like, for lack of a better word, almost like an inspector, making sure that they followed, had the right compaction going on, the right depth of asphalt, and just kind of followed it through and made sure things were going how they should go.
Okay, so how long is that pavement going to last?
Well, there's no truck traffic on it, so we don't have to worry about that. I mean, I was always concerned about the Rusty Wallace cars because their pounding on the track seemed to always concern me, and there's a lot of continuous laps, but it's looking good. We do the crack sealing every year. We keep up with it. That's really important, the crack sealing. Otherwise, if the water gets in there and freezes, you're gonna have
The
problems with it.
weepers.
Yeah, so that's a way to keep up with it.
So, asphalt specialist then over here, I guess. No, but what kind of Doug was actually talking about when the track was paved. He attributes his career kind of like swing in the late models to because he was the first driver to change his driving to the track because the line totally changed. What is the track the same dimensions and the same banking as it used to be?
All that stayed the same, but what would have changed would have been, number one, if you picture the old asphalt that was on there, it was coarse. You've worn out, the fines are gone.
So the fines are on top, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
You've worn that out over the years. This was what was it paved in 1970?
67. Oh, because it
So-
was the original pavement,
Yeah,
right?
that was
67.
So,
Wow.
now you talk about that, and then when you're paving, so when the guys were racing before and they had kind of created a groove, if you want to call it that, now when you pave, there's no way you're going to still have that groove
Yeah.
because you're putting a whole lift, around the track, and you're changing that.
So is it like each level of the pavement is a different
Well, the base,
coarseness of it?
the base is a coarser one than the top one is it's called Class 1.
So as time
But was
goes
actually a
on,
special-
that can
Yeah,
wear.
yes, it could.
And
Yep.
that could be why the past couple seasons, the top of the track has really come in.
Sure, yep.
Probably the last, maybe 10 years or so, the top side is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of also attribute that to Priest because he was the first guy to go up
To
there,
go up there, yeah.
in
Yeah.
years. But now, look at the SK
People go up
Elites.
there.
The preferred line is the outside.
Yeah,
That's
and
interesting.
you can pass up there. Yeah, get grip up there.
Yeah, so help pave the
Yeah,
was the
well,
project
I wasn't on
coordinator
I wasn't
probably
on the
of
equipment, but I was on the sidelines.
So any other memorable times here? And it can be good, bad.
Another one I'll always remember is the year that we named the stands after Teddy.
Oh, that was fun,
his
yeah.
100th win. That was exciting. We've had a lot of different drivers come and go here, but that's memorable. Another thing was the year that Jack Sr. passed away, which was in 2006. That Sizzler, the people that came out in
Yeah.
respect for him.
That's cool.
I will never forget that. That was in
It was
the
a perfect
the
day.
nice video that Jackie had put together. That was a special day. That was
cool.
Even though it was sad for us, but it was special, and he was smiling
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it was a perfect day.
It was a beautiful day. Yep.
The crowd was a good-looking crowd. It's always a plus. Anything else?
Anything else? Another.
The list is long, so I just got to keep asking here. We can't just do.
Well, when you
when
you guys started racing and you started in the karts, that I'm never gonna forget that. The first time that you guys got in the karts, you were in. I believe you started in
Junior Outlaws.
Juniors, and so did David. And
David was bad.
David was bad. The famous kart story is, and I know this is just too much, but so you guys were in it with Kyle and Corey Casagrande.
Yeah.
The four of
The
you
team
were kind of
cars,
team
yeah.
cars.
Our
and
numbers were 13, 14, 15, and 16.
and it probably was one of the first seasons that David was racing, and you guys go into what I think is their turn 2 or whatever, and you and Kyle and Corey all wreck. Well, here comes David. I mean, it feels like it's like
He was dead last.
he was coming from the back of the pack, and can he really not even avoid you? Goes right into it. So not just 3 carts, but all 4 carts wrecked
Yeah, that's
in one
bad.
wreck.
And it wasn't like there was only 10 cars. There were probably 25
There was a lot
cars
of
out
cars
there.
and
And
carts in there.
David was probably 26th place. And he drove right into the pile.
He did.
Yeah.
He's improved, though. He's
Yeah,
done a lot better now.
I'm probably still the better driver, but a story for a
Another
debate for
day.
a different day.
And I
doubt
would
he's
and
even
I would
listening
want
to this, so.
and I would want David to be part of that debate. So.
So now we both drive. I
Yep.
drive a late model. He drives a modified. How does that, as a mom, how does that make you feel? And as a track promoter, is that important from a track, from the the track's knowledge of the cars and stuff? Kind of talk us through
all that is like it's interesting that you should ask that. First of all, when you guys, just let me step back, also you guys raced together in the limiteds in the same division. So it's one thing when you were in the karts and I could follow you in a smaller track, but when you guys got into the limiteds and the track and you're both on the track at the same time, it was really difficult to like follow you both. You know, it's a lot of times one was more in the front and one was more in the back. So it was hard to follow. So when you went into each in your own division, at least then I was able to focus on each of you guys in the division you're in. But it's hard as I can so relate to somebody. It's very hard as a mother, probably wife, daughter, whatever, to watch someone you know in a race. It just is. It's you guys probably don't even realize the extent of it, but for me it is hard. I have a hard time actually breathing. There's people who I've met around me that realize that.
Is it both of us, or is it just because I get out after I drive, I watch the SKs, and I struggle to watch that now because the racing is so close and so the whole field can crash in a corner. And then I look at David, who's right in the mix. He's still kind of new in the division. He's going against some of the top guys in New England, and I know his budget is so tight that all it takes is a really bad night. And he's out of business for the year. You know, that's scary.
Yeah, and that's that's probably another reason why I sit there and I'm nervous the whole time is I know that a wreck, what it costs to fix a car, and that gets back to your other question is both of you guys being in it gives us a really good perspective as far as like what the cost is to any of our competitors or anybody involved in the sport.
That's what I tell, because I feel like I get the question a lot of how are you involved in the management and also drive at your parents' track at the family track, and I say, well, there's obviously not going to be favoritism because if there was, it'd be so obvious. So that's out of the question because that's the immediate thought that most people come to is, they're going to get a better call. No, it's not going to happen. Like, look, I haven't won a race in 2 years. Like,
if anything, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think you're under like a microscope. Like
definitely.
In tech, are you kidding me? If you guys get in tech, it's like you're not going to get away with anything. How could you?
But I also now we've pretty much gone in every division now between the two of us, all 5 of them. And we know all about the cars. We know all about the costs. We know all the people involved in each division. I can't imagine not driving or between the two of us, one of us being in a car because I think it adds so much to the business. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, it's almost like I said before. You have to be able to keep up with it too, year after year, because everything changes. So you'd want to have, as much as I say, it makes me nervous to have you both in it, it's a good thing to have you in it.
Yeah, and I think it's key to the continuing growth of the each class. Like if you look at the late model division, I think the reason why I went to that division, I was having some success in the limiteds, but it was also we needed to make a statement and say
the late
these cars we're committed to this car. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to abandon it. They're
here to stay.
There was the rumors going everywhere, and so we're gonna put together a late model, and that's a hard division. We've struggled, but I think that we've now have 20 cars a week because of that. So I think it's always an interesting topic.
Very true. Very true. But you're right about one thing though, that it is more difficult for me to watch the open wheeled than it is the full fendered.
And why is that? Just because they're racing?
And I know they're safe. I know the cars are safe. I know our facility is safe with the safer wall. With our track crew is unbelievable. Everything is in place. It's just those open wheels. They just know that slight bit of contact.
Are you a fan though? Do you like to watch the modifieds?
I do. I actually have grown to love racing.
Is that a recent thing you think, or?
Oh no. I mean, as over the years, I've. At first I didn't know if I'd really ever be a true like how everybody loves it, but I really truly there's no other sport that I enjoy to watch.
Huh. Even the Cup? Do you watch the Cup series?
Oh, I do watch the Cup, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, as far as that's still sport. That's still the sport of racing.
So I want to jump to a topic about women in the sport. I know it's always an interesting discussion how it can be challenging for women to go into male-dominated sports or industries or businesses. And you've kind of done that in construction out of college all the way to now.
College,
so
yeah.
you've always been in that. So
Yeah.
talk to us about, is that challenging, or how do you look at it? Like, what's your perspective of that?
You know, I don't see a challenge at all, as far as, maybe it's just because, like you said, I went through it from high school, actually, because even in high school I took shop class or whatever. So I've always been around men and know maybe they're what I'm up against. So you just adjust it and you make it work. It's not a challenge, though. They're no different than anyone else. So it's something that I've always been around, and it's, you know, day to day. It's just
It's nothing. It's
no,
not a big deal.
No, but I'm really, you know, as far as the women that are in racing or that want to get involved in racing, you know, have at it, because you have just as good of an opportunity here as you do any of the guys. If you know, it's what you put into it, and you're going to get out of it, you know, whatever you can accomplish.
And so then, why do you think we have so many women drivers at Stafford compared to other tracks? There's at any time there's 7 to 10 a night, which I don't like. If you look around the country, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any tracks that have that many competitors that are female, which I think is amazing, and they're good and they're talented.
They are. They're all talented. It's you know, I want to say it's because we're a family-oriented track. You know, we have a lot of women that actually are on our team, Team Stafford. There's a lot of women that are the officials.
True.
All of our, you know, our gate staff, our ticket people, our
cameras,
and every element
yeah.
of it, there's women involved. So we're open to the, you know, having them come here and welcome them and treat them fairly with respect, and I think that they enjoy that.
So do you cheer?
I
for
do.
all the ladies?
Of course.
I think what's cool about it, I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a cool thing that. What other sport do you have a women competing directly with men? There's nothing.
They always have their own league. Or not
and
here.
Not only competing, they're winning. There's plenty. Like, look at Alex Fern. She has 20 career victories here, which is impressive, and the list is long, and there's a lot of them still coming up out of the carts. If you go to the carts on the kart series, there's loads of young girls in the Cubs, the sprints, which is awesome to see. So the history of the track, this place is old. Do you kind of look at the history of the track and say, wow, like how do we preserve it, and like what is the history of this place mean to you?
As far as, like, I mean, it depends on how far you're going
like,
back.
Just,
but
I always, like, when we do the podcast, I have a view of the hall with the paintings and this old sign here behind me, and then you go outside, and then the building was built in 1916. It's just, like, kind of hard to grasp all that. And, like, what is that? You know, it's very important. And, like, how important is that to you and to the track going forward?
It's actually, like, if you think about it, I don't want to put you under any more pressure than you already are, but it actually puts us under pressure to make sure that we are keeping, you know, continue to raise the bar, to keep that history alive. You know, I know we have that banner, that 50 greatest.
Oh, that's going to be cool. Yeah.
And we actually, I don't know if we should.
I already dropped it on the show, so you can tell everybody again.
People have been asking us for years, can you refresh that banner that's down on the tech shack on the Midway? And so that's something that we're putting out this year. Hopefully we'll have it out for the Sizzler. But just so many things to keep this place, the level of it that much, you know, just keep raising the bar. And it's a lot of pressure, because you don't want to be, you know, and even when you don't want to be forgetting about somebody or not mentioning something that happened that was important, because you never know what tomorrow will bring. So
yeah, and it's tough to. There's a lot. I've kind of over the course of this podcast learned a lot of stuff that I had no idea about, because I only really can recall the late 90s at the earliest. So there's 4 decades of modifieds at Stafford prior to that, that we have to kind of continue to post pictures and tell the tales and
tell the stories. Yeah.
Keep, like, we brought back the Ascenders Cup this year.
Yeah.
It's right there behind you, which is a race that was last competed in 70. What does it say? 79.
79. Richie Evans.
Who was the winner?
Richie Evans.
So that's coming back this year. We're gonna update the trophy and kind of continue something cool in the past. So I have one. Dad told me there was one tale that he told me that I have to ask about. There was a night where you both were coming back from the track and you were kind of like taken aback. You gotta tell the story.
Well, it's probably several nights at this. If I'm thinking of the same story, and I know because Dad will repeat this story over and over. Back in the day, when Dad started coming here when he started full time, it was back in like '86. Times were tough. It was a switchover of the SKs, the modifieds, and all that. And we're pulling out of the track and we're driving home. Of course, he has to relive the whole night because that's what we do, and that's what we do all the time. And as we're going home, he goes, and I said, wow, he seemed pretty happy considering there wasn't many people there. and I was like, but I'm going to go with it because if he's happy, then I'll be happy. And so, what did you think of the night? He goes, oh, it was a good night. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah, we only lost 10 grand tonight. And I'm like, oh, okay. And okay, that doesn't upset you? Well, that's better than the week before because I think we lost 12. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we're going in the right direction.
And you're like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, so that story, it's a true story.
Whoa. What am I getting myself into?
Yes, that's it, yeah.
Any regrets on coming to this place or what?
I'll tell you, it's the best. It's the best thing I've ever done. My family gets to work together. I've worked with my husband, who is my life. He's my best friend.
I thought you were going to say crazy.
It's crazy, we know that. But every day, 7 days a week, we're together all the time, and and then you guys are here, and my family's here, and that's most important to me. So.
That's great. Yeah. That's wonderful to hear. I have a couple more questions though. That can't be the
end.
Did
I bring a tear to your eye?
That's why. Okay, so the podcasters can know. That's why Mark Arute cannot come on the show. Because he wouldn't be able to. He's like Brian Pisacco, wouldn't last 5 minutes.
He's very emotional. He's emotional.
My question is, where do you think the business and the local racing sphere goes in the next 20 to 25 seasons down the road? So that'll put us in 20. Let's call it 2050. What are we like?
What are you looking to me to do my exit strategy right now? Is that what you're looking?
You've been in the business for now since the late '80s. You've been involved, and it's changed dramatically. I'd say we still turn left, right? It's the same thing. The tires are tires. The gas is gas. You turn left, but the business model has changed a lot. What do you if you were to have a crystal ball? What would you say?
Wow, that's
What's
tough.
going to happen?
I'd like to think that every year we're always improving and it's always getting better. In the last couple of years, it seems like it's going in the right direction. Our car counts are good. People are excited to come to the track. They enjoy themselves. They love being around other people. Obviously, right now we can't gather more than 25 people, but we'll work on that. Maybe the governor will help us out on that one. But it's something that we got to just continue to build on. And if we can continue like we've been on that path, then I don't see it. I don't see it going the other direction again. I really think that we can sustain and continue to grow.
Interesting.
Do you?
No, I do. I think the longer, we're kind of building a community, I guess you could say, more than just a place to come and race, where between social and being here and actually at the track and being online and watching the old events on online, that you have this community of people who can just constantly talk about and be involved. It's like sport. It's a sport, right? When people are obsessed with the Patriots, right? They're obsessed with, they know everything. They know all the stats and all the players. They go to the games, they talk about it. It's all they do. We have been, and we will continue to create that, like that
Atmosphere.
circle. It's an atmosphere of where, yes, you look like your whole a week is to look forward to. I'm going to the track on Friday. Yeah. Between that's like kind of from like the drivers and the race fans, but also from a drivers and teams. I think we've shown we've shown that Stafford is always consistent. Yeah. The purses are good. The gates open on time. The prices are fair. The events
friendly.
are good. We try to be friendly the best we can, unless you're an asshole to us.
Oh, come on now. Nobody
I'm
does
talking
that.
to those people on Facebook.
That guy that just posted that comment.
I'm still friendly. Or the voicemail we got this morning telling us that we suck. But
whoa, that's a
story
tough
for
one.
a different day. But I think we've continued to prove that we are consistent, right? I always tell everyone that every Friday from May to September at 5 o'clock on a Friday, the gates open.
5:15.
5:15. Sorry. And that's always the case. We're gonna do that 20 times a year, and it's always gonna be that way. It's not. Yeah. We're gonna be on top of the rules, on top of the divisions, on top of all that. So that's my take on it.
Good. I'm glad.
Is that a rant?
That is good. That is good though. But I did ask a question of you. I turned it on you.
All right, so my last couple of questions here. Is there an event is there a 2020 event you're looking forward to the most?
You know what? I always love the Napa Spring Sizzler. It's the opening point of the season. It's, everybody gets back together, gets to see each other, haven't seen each other all winter. It's a big gathering, and it's a wonderful day usually. And,
it's always fun.
And especially this year now with what's going on, we all want it. You know what I mean? We all want to get together. And it's like there, but we just can't, we're wondering, what day is it going to happen? So it is going to happen.
It'll happen. We have to adjust. But.
Yeah. But like I said, we did it last year. We had to adjust a little bit. But we are going to have the Napa Spring Sizzler. And it is one of my most favorite. It's usually just a beautiful day, and as long as the weather's good.
The last couple of years, but if it's always a good everybody's
atmosphere.
The community that I talked about, right, comes out and is like just so excited to be here, and that's so cool to watch.
And then on the other end of it, when we have the fall final conclusion to a lot going on. Oh, a lot going on all year. It is like you have the highs, and then boom, at the end of the fall final, it's like, wait, I can stop. I can breathe now. I can.
But it also is
breathe.
The worst because we're finally in a rhythm.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
just like it clicks off like this, and the events are good. 'Cause it takes until June to get everything squared
going.
away.
Yeah.
And then we always kind of do a couple questions at the tail end of the podcast. I'm not going to ask your favorite track because that's a typical question I ask. I'm hoping it's Stafford Speedway.
Yes, I believe so.
And I'm not going to ask you your least favorite track. I do have to ask about your experience in the two-seater.
Oh my goodness!
I know that one almost slipped my mind there. You've taken. Is that the only time you've been in a race car?
That is the only time I've been in a race car.
It's probably the last time, right?
Yeah, probably will be. So a couple years ago, David had the two-seater out, and he says to me, "Hey, you got to come out here. We got the two-seater out here. I want to give you a ride." I'm like, I'm not going for a ride. And Bob Powder used to always ask me to go out, and I would trust Bob anytime, whatever.
Probably more than David.
No, I trust David, and but I was afraid to do it. Yeah. And I knew I had to, though, in a way. I'm like, how can I tell people about it if I've never done it? So I'm just doing my work, whatever. And next thing I know, David's in my office. I'm like, what are you doing? You're coming out to get in the two-seater. I'm like, oh, no, I can't. And then I'm just like today going on this podcast. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And my son asked me a question. I'm going to do it. So we go out there. Of course, the fun part was putting on the fire suit and the helmet. The hard part was getting in the car and getting strapped in, but that got taken care of. So we start, and I was nervous. I was really nervous. Not because I totally trust David. Sorry, Paul, but I trust David in that two-seater. I don't know if I would have gotten it if you got me to.
I would trust myself to drive it.
So we're going around, and we're, backstretch going down, and I don't even think we had gone into the front stretch, and I thought we were going really fast. So I gave him the old slow down. So he thought something was wrong with me. And so he stops the car and he puts up this thing and he's, what's wrong? I go, oh my gosh, you're going too fast. And he's like, I'm not even going like half throttle. What are you talking about?
No, you weren't even going the pace car speed.
So I said, he goes, Ma, just let me take it one time around full speed. So I said, okay. And as I said my prayers, which I always say at the racetrack, I said my prayers, and he maybe went around one time, and we're so close to the wall, and I felt as though I was in this tilt mode. I said, I don't think I can handle this. So I did the old cut again, and he made sure he knew that we weren't anywhere near speed, but I got my ride. Yeah, it was actually fun. Now that I look back at it,
I was in the infield, and you guys were stopped in turn 4, or you were slowing down in turn 4. I could hear you screaming from turn 4. So that
I think I could hear you guys laughing.
For the listeners, probably 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour.
No
maybe
way.
30.
No way.
What's pace car? Pace car speed's like 35. You're probably going pace car speed.
No, I'm gonna say maybe like 50 or 60.
You did get one corner up to speed. Okay. So you did maybe a lap. You did a lap.
I'll have to ask David that one. But if you want the experience of your life, then
two-seater.
Do the two-seater.
And it's coming back. We'll have a different driver this year.
Yeah.
We're gonna definitely miss Bob in that car. Mm-hmm. He gave everyone a lot of great times. So
he did.
But his legacy will live on with a new driver. So I think it's a wrap, unless you got anything else you want to talk about.
I think if I have any questions for you.
If you got any questions for me, go ahead.
Who do you got any other people lined up for your podcast?
Jack Arute, like we talked about.
Good.
Junior,
that would be
because
good.
we can't do senior,
That was bad.
Jackie, we have a lot to talk about. We actually talked about possibly even doing it in 2 parts.
Wow.
Initially talk about Stafford, because what's interesting about Jackie is that he was really close to Bugsy and to the Bodines and to Richie, and because that was kind of prior to anyone else. He was always here. He was in the pits. He was hanging out. So that is, I can imagine, and he's a great storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And half of them are not true.
A little exaggerated, maybe. That's the Arute deal.
I like to think they're true, but they're probably not. But he's going to come on, and then I think even at part 2, we got to talk about his time going
Indy
to NASCAR to MRN. So that's going to be an awesome guest. We're going to have Dan Avery on, I believe. We're going to try and get Dan on. He's been at Stafford for 30 plus seasons at least. Mm-hmm. And now he's a big shot car owner. I'm going to start calling him Roger Penske. He's got a 3-car team, even a 4-car team, I guess.
So what's your goal as far as how many more podcasts before we open up?
So this is episode 8. We'll probably do at least two more. Okay. Possibly 3, and hopefully even cap it off with a special edition episode, the Sizzler.
Okay.
With the champion of the Sizzler.
Nice.
Post race.
Good.
So that could be a good time.
That sounds
good. Any other questions for me?
No, I think I don't know. I like the podcast. It was a great idea to get us through the winter, through the cold months.
Appreciate that, and we appreciate you coming on. And you're very important on the track. You're the boss, the matriarch of Stafford Speedway, for lack of a better term here. And it was a great.
Well, thank you for having me and for talking me into it. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. That's a wrap, guys.